Everybody wants to get married. Everybody's looking for that special someone. Who is it that God has planned for me to spend the rest of my life with? It's almost like we're jumping to conclusions or getting the cart before the horse, as they say. So today we're going to talk about 5 ways that you can know that you are actually ready to be married. Who wants to jump into marriage and then just have the whole thing blow up? One of the main things that we want to try to help people avoid is divorce. It's one of the things we talked about in our very first video, just the heartbreak of the divorce rate in this country and in this world. Take it away, Veronica.
So the very first thing for you to identify when you are ready to get married is when you stop obsessing over marriage. The minute you stop over analyzing marriage or planning everything before you even meet a man, is when you know you are ready to get married. Like, a lot of people will say, oh, you need to plan your life. It's fine. When I was a little girl, I used to dream about my marriage. I used to dream about my wedding especially. I used to have these plans written in a little book. And that is fun when you were a little girl. But as an adult, when you start obsessing over this thing where your whole life is about getting married, sometimes you can get into your own head. You are so obsessed about getting married that when a man comes, you can't even see him because the marriage is all that you are thinking about.
Right. Or you're so obsessed with it that you jump into the wrong relationships over and over and over again because it's just all you can think about. It's kind of like that Disney princess syndrome where you're just obsessed with this idea of meeting Prince Charming, right? And rushing to the altar because somehow you're quote unquote incomplete without a man, which is not true.
It's not true. And so you have to make sure that you are not obsessing over getting married. You are not obsessing over the idea of marriage. It will come. If marriage is in the cards for you or in the books for you, it will come naturally. You don't need to be obsessed over it. You don't need to have sleepless nights over the idea of getting married.
The second thing that we wanted to talk about is you will know when you're ready to be married when you are saved.
Yes.
People take this for granted, and the world has kind of adopted marriage as a tradition that they take part in, which is fine, but the reality is God instituted marriage. God was the one that came up with the idea for marriage. So what does marriage actually mean? What is the purpose of marriage? Is it just so that you can have your best life now and so that you can be happy and, you know, have a bunch of romantic dinners and be celebrated and all that kind of stuff? Well, that's part of being married, actually, but the main purpose of marriage is that you would be a reflection of Christ's love for the church. The one flesh union, it's a picture, an intimate picture of Jesus' love for his people, for his redeemed people, the church. So we need to move into this thinking, what is God's point in marriage? And also, what happens when you're married? What happened, honey, when we started being married? Our sanctification was growing because we were being challenged as individuals. Our selfishness was being exposed, the weaknesses and things that were just of the flesh and not being refined outside of marriage because we were never challenged or put in the position for it to be brought to the surface necessarily, was suddenly very apparent. You are being cultivated in marriage to become more like Christ. So first off, get saved and get connected with God.
That is what will propel you to know that, okay, I am actually ready to be with someone who is Christ-minded, who prays, who seeks after the Lord. You yourself need to have a strong connection with him. When I say him, I'm talking about Jesus Christ. When you have a strong connection with him, when that man or woman comes your way, you will know exactly the type of person that they are because they are rooted in his word.
Exactly. See, and that takes care of some of the other problems that we talked about, rushing into relationships with all the wrong guys, right? Because if you are saved and you are seeking God's face, then all of a sudden he's going to give you clarity about the man that you should be looking for. And you're going to be looking for a man who is seeking God's heart, a man after God's own heart. It wasn't until Veronica and I settled into our salvation, you could say, and surrendered to the will of God that suddenly we found each other. Before that, we had a bunch of train wreck relationships. And I know all of you have been there too. So
we all have been there.
And it's time to stop that, right? It's time to get on track with God's will for your life. We've said this before, your will is going to bring a curse upon you. But God's will, even if it doesn't look like what you wanted necessarily in your fleshly mind, is going to reap a bounty of blessing beyond your wildest imaginings.
This is the third way for you to know that you are ready for marriage. When you have developed a certain level of emotional maturity, all types of maturity. Marriage requires you to be matured.
Yeah.
Because if you go into a relationship where you are not emotionally matured, keep in mind, you both come from different backgrounds. He was raised differently than I was. And so there are certain things that he might do that he might not see it as offensive. But from the culture that I come from, might look offensive, okay? If I do not have the emotional maturity to communicate with him and tell him that, listen, this is not how we do things where I'm from. This is how I would like it to be done. I promise you, you will be so miserable. And you will think that your partner does not like you. You have to develop a strong level of emotional maturity. You have to know that you are in this relationship for the long run. And whatever that he's doing is not doing it because he hates you. He's actually doing it because that is how he was brought up. So find a way. I'm going to insert this in here into parentheses. When it comes to emotional maturity, you also have to have a strong communication skill. You have to communicate. People cannot read your mind. If you are a type of person, if you cannot really communicate with your friends about how you are feeling, I promise you, when you go into a marriage, you are not going to be able to communicate with your partner. You are going to assume that he knows what you are thinking. You are going to assume that he knows how you are feeling. But people are not mind readers. You need to be a great communicator. You don't have to be a perfect communicator, but you have to be able to express how you are feeling so that your partner can help you in the ways that you need help with. If you haven't watched our last video, go watch it. I speak about how I was standing in my own way for the longest of time. And when I first got married, I used to stand in my own way too, because I had never, experienced a relationship that was this good to me. And so I needed to navigate, and I needed to discover a lot about myself, at the very early stages of my marriage, so that I could then communicate to him how I was feeling or why I was quiet certain days and the uncertainties that were going on in my mind about life in general. And that is just because of the type of person that I grew up and the type of person I always was. And so you need to be a great communicator, not a perfect communicator, but a great communicator. And you need emotional maturity to be able to even communicate. Don't cry about everything. Everything should not be like you cry your eyes out. Talk to your partner. I promise you guys are a team and you can figure things out.
Yeah, maturity, it's an umbrella, and there's so many topics that are underneath that umbrella. For instance, one of the main things about an emotionally mature person, a spiritually mature person, just all around, like my wife was saying, is that you have accepted the fact that life is not all about you.
Yes.
Everything isn't all about you. And you're not always right, and that you have an openness to grow and to accept when you're wrong. And that has a lot to do with communication, because self-centered people are horrible communicators because they're always fixated on themselves, fixated on them being right, fixated on having the last word in a conversation. That's dominating, that can even be manipulating, and all kinds of things. It stems from a lack of maturity. And these things also are deep-rooted in pain and maybe past traumas and things like that, which is why, once again, get saved. God will heal all of those broken places. And it may take time. And again, that's part of what marriage is for, is to mature you. So it's not like you have to be perfect before you come into marriage. But these things are indicators that you are at least ready to embark upon that lifelong journey, because it is a lifelong journey. Our pastor this last Sunday said something to the effect of, people will wonder, did I marry the right person? I don't know. I feel like maybe I should leave this person because we're not connected, and God's seems to be calling me out of the marriage. Well, rest assured, if you're married, you married the right person, is what he said, because marriage is a commitment for life, till death do you part. And so all of that takes maturity to accept and understand.
So for you to know that you are ready for marriage, this is another thing for you to discover about yourself. Are you financially matured? Are you able to handle your finances in a way that, puts you in a position for you not to struggle tomorrow? When money comes into your hands, are you able to save that money, or are you wasteful? Because marriage, your finances becomes one. I personally believe finances should be one, but Everyone's situation is different. And so if you have a partner that has a wasteful habit and, has a gambling habit, then I do understand that money should be kept separately. Like I said, it's a whole other conversation to be had about it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be one-minded and say, oh, no, keep your money together. No, I'm not going to do that.
But we're talking about ideally.
Ideally, yes. So if you know that you are someone who is wasteful, try to bring that under control.
And consider also what the Word of God says about how to handle your money. Because at the end of the day, handling money properly is a spiritual issue. It indicates that your contentment is in the right place, that your priorities are in the right place, and that all that you have, God has given to you, and that we live our lives to glorify God, not to just satisfy our own fleshly desires. So money, it may seem sort of like an off-topic thing, but it actually is one of those foundational items that really does indicate where you are in your maturity and in your walk with the Lord and in your readiness to enter into the challenges that you're going to face in marriage. So we said we were going to give you 5 ways to know that you're ready to enter into marriage, but we like to give a little extra here at Ted and Vero TV, and we have a bonus for you, and that is, I would say it's a good indication that you're ready to be married when you're no longer bitter about other married couples or other people that are swimming in romance and in love. If you feel bitterness when your friends get married, if you feel this hardness of heart coming over yourself and you just can't help it, and it's very difficult for you to celebrate honestly and genuinely when other people are succeeding in love, you're not ready to be married.
No, you're not.
But when these things happen, when your friends are getting married, when you're at the grocery store and you see a couple holding hands and the wife is pushing the baby stroller, and you think to yourself, God bless them, I'm excited for what God has for me. Once you're there, that's a very good indication that you are ready to be married and that God is probably getting ready to bless you and bring you into that place where you meet the person that he has intended for you.
The honesty of the heart is so vital and very important. And honesty of heart will bring you so many blessings, not just about marriage alone, in life in general. When you have an honest heart, when you have a pure heart, when you are someone who is kind deeply, because some of us are kind on the outside and deep within our heart is very dark. And so if you are someone that is genuinely kind on the inside, if you are someone that is truly honest on the inside, whatever that you are looking for in this life, God will bring your way. There's so many people that will share their story of how they were not looking for things, they were not seeking, they just were in a happy space when it comes to, other people, and then God surprised them.
That's right.
And I know Ted, I know you said this is a bonus, but I want to add this to it quickly, okay?
Two bonuses.
Bonuses.
Told you we like to deliver here.
But, if you guys like this video, let us know in the comment because we'll do more of these. But I want you to be happy. In the season that you are currently in the season where your partner hasn't yet come and you don't even know who you are going to end up with, I want you to find happiness. Find happiness in Christ. Let Christ be everything for you. Let Christ be your husband. Let him take care of your mental health. Let him take care of your finances. Commit everything into his hands. Let him be that person in your life. Find happiness in him and commit everything that you have into his hands. Seek him wholeheartedly. And I promise you that you will be one of the happiest people that has ever walked the face of the earth.
Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. There is nothing lacking in the love of Christ.